today is gonna be about TIBCO Autonomous REST connector for JDBC, where you can use your REST APIs as a data source using SQL. Tiro will be covering this more in details. Can you please go to the next slide, please? Yeah, so something interesting also is actually happening with our Doctor series. So we're going to go on streaming instead of Zoom webinar. So today is the last Zoom webinar session for Dr. Jaspersoft. We're gonna go on streaming, as you see here, from all the social medias channels. So just some note here, this is going to be for all Doctor series, not just Dr. Jaspersoft. So if you're not already aware, we have a Doctor program for other TIBCO products as well, such as Dr. Spotfire, Dr. Streaming, Dr. Integration, where we cover almost all of our products. So there will still be a landing page, but instead of a registration, we will provide you time and the live stream link. So you'll be able to join on the scheduled date and time by just going to that link. And the recording will be automatically shared on YouTube after the live stream is over. So this will make it easier for you to be notified and attend our Doctor series. Yeah, so starting next month, and more details will come via email. Thank you, Tiro. Could we go to the slide? So the next Dr. Jaspersoft session will be talking about Jaspersoft rate limiting, which is a very cool feature in Jasper Report Server, where we talk about the ways you can limit and manage the number of requests to your server APIs, which can help you on many use cases. Stay tuned for October session. And yeah, so just guys, please use the Q&A section in Zoom webinar on the bottom of your screen. It will be easier for us to monitor your questions. Instead of you put it on the chat, we might get notified of your question. So without further ado, Tiro, you can go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Badr. So hi, as Badr introduced, my name is Thiru. I'm the customer success architect at TIBCO Jaspersoft. And today's agenda is I'll briefly discuss about the TIBCO AutoREST driver. In the demonstration, I'll demonstrate a simple and a most typical use case on how you can connect your REST endpoints and bring data into the Jaspersoft Studio to build reports. I'll also show how you can create a REST-based JDBC data source on the Jasper report server. At the end, I'll also show how you can turn on debug logging for troubleshooting purposes as well. So without any further delay, let's dive in. Here is the overview slide that I put in. So we will discuss what this TIBCO Jaspersoft AutoREST driver is, why, where can I download it, and how to use this driver. What is this driver? So TIBCO Autonomous REST Connector for JDBC is a driver that supports SQL read-only access to the JSON-based REST API data sources. To support SQL access to REST services, the driver creates a relational map of the returned JSON data and translate the SQL statements to REST API requests. So underneath the hood, the driver does the heavy lifting to convert the JSON-based data into the SQL-based data source. So for answering the why part, previously the web service data source was used by our customers to bring data from JSON or XML-based data sources. This was a community-based project, and it's not officially supported by TIBCO. We partnered with Progress to bring this driver generally available, so you can connect your JSON-based endpoints as any other SQL data sources to build reports and dashboards. So the end goal here is you no longer need to use the web service data source. Where can we download this driver? So you can, as I put it in the slide here, you can go to edelivery.tibco.com and you can download this AutoREST driver. So how do you use this driver? We will cover this in our demo in a bit. Here's a use case. So we'll be discussing how we use this AutoREST driver on Jaspersoft Studio and Jasper Report Server. As we all know, in order to create a JDBC connection, we need to build a connection string. This AutoREST driver needs a configuration file and authentication method. And the authentication method is optional in this case. And we need a configuration file. So what is this config file? This config file is a REST file, and it's a simple text file that uses file name .rest naming convention. So this REST is needed to map JSON responses to the relational model. Although the primary purpose of the REST file is to define endpoint and table mapping, it is also capable of configuring a number of driver behaviors such as paging, custom authentication, and HTTP response code processing. For more information, we can refer to the progress documentation. We'll go ahead and click on this link and just take a look at the config file. Already have this sample config file here. So this is an example file. You can use it as per, you can use it and modify as per your requirements. So you can see you have all the entries. You take this and then update it or change as per your requirements. So we'll go through some of the use cases during the demonstration. And let's go back to the slide here. And here you can also see the syntax for the AutoREST connection string highlighted in the board. So if you see the syntax at the bottom here, it has the JDBC TIBCO software AutoREST authentication method and the configuration file, which is the REST file that we need to create for mapping to the JSON endpoints. So the driver also supports a wide variety of authentication methods. So by default, the authentication, if you don't specify any authentication method, it uses no authentication. So no authentication is used for REST services that do not require any authentication. This is often used for publicly available data such as weather, earthquake, governmental census, statistical data. Basic authentication authenticates using the specified user ID, password, and HTTP headers. HTTP header authentication passes the security tokens via the HTTP headers to authenticate. URL parameter authentication, and then OAuth2 the custom authentication. And as I mentioned, if you don't specify any authentication method, it takes the default authentication. We'll look at a couple of use cases in our demonstration. So let me minimize this. Okay, so what do we need? So we need to download the jar file. So here is a location. You have if you go to our edelivery.tibco.com, and then once you log in and search for TIBCO Jaspersoft connector software, and then choose your operating system, agree to the terms and conditions license agreement, and then you can download this driver from here for TI, AutoREST, and the version .jar file. So this is the jar file that you need to download. So let's go ahead and create actually a simple example, and then we'll go and do another little bit more typical use case here. So here I have a REST endpoint, which is JSON data. I have a countries and states here. So basically, it's a JSON endpoint which has countries and states. So as I mentioned during the session, we need to create the connection string. So let's launch a Jaspersoft Studio here. So let me create a data adapter. In order for that, data adapter, we need to specify the authentication method and the configuration file. So let's go ahead and create a configuration file. So here I built a configuration file, so which is it's a table mapping. So I created the config file, which is it's a table here, and then path. I used it from the REST example, and then I specified the endpoint and then passing in the country section here. So this is my configuration file. So the very basic example here. So let me go ahead and create a connection string. So the way you do it is like I have already created here. So let me go ahead and edit that. So here you need to use this class name, and then so in the driver, let's go ahead and do a let's created. So I'm using a JDBC connection here, and then you would need to specify the driver, and then the connection string. Let me go ahead and get this. Okay. And this is a connection string. And then in the driver class path, you need to add the jar file that you have downloaded. So right here, so this is a jar file. So I already did it. So let me go ahead and show this here. So now if you look at the class path, I have added the jar file and the JDBC driver location. And here is my connection string. As you can see, it has AutoREST authentication method is none, and it's pointing to that arc / myrest.rest. So if you look at the path, so here is the myrest file, which is nothing but a mapping file here. So let me go ahead and click on test connection. Okay, the connection is successful. So now if I go ahead and finish, so I'll create a new report. So basically I'm creating a project explorer. I'm creating a report here. So I already have the connection. So with that JDBC, the connection string that you have created, I can see expand this AutoREST fields. It's pretty much simple. What you do. It's any other data source. All you need to do is make sure you establish them, create the connection string, and you can perform pretty much the same operations as you do on any other JDBC data source. You can do data previewing, you can do perform like parameters, you can create params and anything else like similar to any other JDBC data sources. You can write SQL queries. The best thing is you can write SQL queries on the top of your JSON-based data source now. It's really awesome. So now I have created this. I dropped the countries section. So let me go ahead and preview the report. They show how easy it is. So now you have the report here. You can see the report. So this is very basic example. So I have one more example I want to demonstrate. So let me close this guy here. So I have a Jasper report server. It also has like a REST API resources that you can access. So let me launch a Postman here. So this is my the REST endpoint that I wanted to connect. So basically what I'm doing is I'm using the Postman to sending the username using the basic authentication. I'm sending in a request here. I'm getting the response back in an XML, but it also returns the data in JSON format as well. So we'll be using the HTTP header authorization. So if you look at the header section here, it has the authorization section where it's using the basic, and this is the authorization from the header section. So we're going to use this for our examples to get these resources into as a SQL data source on the Jaspersoft Studio. So let me go ahead and click on the connection. So here is an example that I already created just to save some time. So we have the example.rest file. So if you look at the REST configuration file, is a REST configuration file. Let me close this guy here. So what I'm doing here is I'm passing the resource, like this is a table, and this is the path that I'm pointing to. And then I'm passing instead of no authentication, I'm passing the header section here, the authorization code that I got from the Postman. And if you look at it, I'm doing it like getting two tables. So I duplicate it. I want to get the resources as well as from the job section here. So I have like two tables. I want to bring it into the Jaspersoft Studio. So so I have this REST file here. I'm not specifying any authentication method here. If you don't specify it, it will take the default authentication as none, or you can configure the authentication in the REST file configuration. So in this case, I'm passing it as a headers, HTTP headers, and then if I test the connection here, so connection is successful. So let me go ahead and click finish. And then if you look at the data source here, And then if I go to the JDBC connection and then read fields, it's reading the metadata definition. Expand it, and then you can see the tables. You can see the jobs table as well as the resources table. So you can write multiple, like say map multiple tables in the REST file with one simple REST file. You can get as many tables as you can as you want, and then you can join them if there are any. Like you can perform same operations as you do with any other, treat them as any other tables in like SQL tables or relational database tables. And then I've created, you can preview it and you can pretty much get everything. And then if I preview the report, it should work because it's hitting that, it's treating as a JSON, SQL data source, and here's the report. Now let's go ahead and publish this. Also, I want to discuss that, we can go ahead and publish this report to the server, and also we'll try to create a connection on the server so that we can test this out on the server. So let me go ahead and publish this particular report. So let me go ahead to the public and say Dr. Jaspersoft demo here. So here I haven't created any data source on the server. So I'll go ahead and create the data source next. So let me go ahead and publish it right now. Okay, if I go to my server, sorry, login. So we have this autonomous REST report. So if I run it, it should error or give a blank report because there's no data source specified here. So let us go ahead and create a data source on the server. Let's go to create data source, and then we'll choose other here, and then we specify this driver last name, and then okay, so here let's copy this connection string information. Okay, and then we don't need to specify username and password because we are authenticating using HTTP headers. Yeah, so the driver support transactions. Okay, so we need to add the transaction mode is equal to ignore. This is a key that I found out after some digging here. So let me test the connection. Okay, the connection is now successful. So I was able to create a connection on the server as a JDBC data source. Let me go ahead and save this. I'm going to save it as Dr. Okay. It's already exists. Demo data source. Okay, now let's go ahead and edit this, and then go to the data source section, and then select the data source from the repository. Okay, and then we have the Dr. Jaspersoft demo data source and publish. And now if I run this report, we should be seeing the data. The report should be loading up with the data here. So with the simple mapping and providing the authentication and authorization method, I was able to get data from the JSON-based data sources. It's very, very simple and very straightforward. And you can also capture the debug logging. Let me show you how you can capture the debug logging. Here on the studio, so you go to the section here, edit it. So you can add, we don't need this schema map. Sure. So you can add debug record at the end. So it's actually debug record. And then you can say debug and then test it. Okay. And then if I go ahead and use this particular connection string, show you the debug records. I already have it, so let me show you what it does. Here. Okay, here's the thing. So once you add those debug records, it'll capture those records in here. You can specify a folder, and then you can see the debug records here. So you have this the request here, the path, and the response, and also you can see the data that is being loaded. So you can capture the debug log entries for any troubleshooting if you are running into any kind of errors. So this is a basic and a most typical example that I want to demonstrate. You can perform more advanced operations. You can define a lot of like paginations and others in the properties file. You can see here it has you can define the pagination, the number of rows, and a lot of complex operations as well. So that's all I want to show.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for this presentation and this rich demo, Tiro. Otherwise,
yeah, one more thing is,
yes,
you can
please.
create, with this JSON data sources, you can create domains and then ad hoc views. So it's like any other data source. So you can create domains and ad hoc views and reports.
Yeah, that will be actually, that was good. So we can actually have our domains, security, and translation all set up for from a data source that is a REST API actually. That's that looks good. So I don't think we have any questions. Could you please share your screen back, Tiro? Okay, so if you go to the resources, so just to remind our attendees that here you have all the resources that Tiro was talking about. So, where to get the e-delivery, where to get the AutoREST driver from e-delivery if you're already a customer with, if you already bought a license. Some documentation about the progress which are using actually for this connector, and the community site for a wiki article actually to help you through the implementation. Can you go to the next slide, please? Yeah, so thank you all guys for joining. And just a reminder, if for any other questions or remark, please reach to your customer success manager if you are already on an Upshift program. If you're not, please shoot us an email to indoctorjaspersoft@tibco.com, or you can ask the community directly as well. We'll do our best to answer your emails from drjaspersoft@tibco.com in the shortest possible time. The video of today's session will be uploaded on YouTube, and we will update the community, the Jaspersoft community, with listing all our Dr. Jaspersoft series in the following days. And yeah, please stay tuned for our October session, Jaspersoft Rate Limiting. This will be on live stream, and the link will be provided to you in the following days. Okay, so thank you all guys for joining. Thank you, Tiro, John, and Kamal for joining as well. Have a great day and see you next month.